As promised, let's delve a little bit deeper into the specifics of the Photoshop interface. In this exercise, I want to talk about the toolbox, the toolbar, heading all the way down the left-hand side of our screen. Now, again, if you're coming to Photoshop, if you're brand new to Photoshop and you're looking at this toolbox, you might feel somewhat overwhelmed. What I will say right off the bat is many of these tools, I mean, I've been using Photoshop for years and years and years. Many of these tools I don't even use. Other tools I use all the time. It really depends on the sort of work that you find yourself doing. I do a lot of web design work and things like this. I'm always laying things out inside Photoshop. So just the nature of that kind of work means that I'm going to gravitate to a specific set of tools. Other people, they do a lot of, photo touch-up and color correction and things like that. That's not really, I mean, I can do that stuff, but it's not really my passion, I guess I could say. So those sets of tools I tend to gravitate away from. It really just depends on the sorts of things that you want to do inside Photoshop. As you can see, if you look a little closer at the toolbox, you can see that the tools are actually grouped into sets of tools, if you will. We can see we have these little horizontal dividers throughout the toolbox. So let me kind of break down these different sets of tools that we have. The first set of tools right at the top here, these are the most common tools. You're going to use these tools quite a bit, I would imagine. The next set of tools that we have, I suppose you could say these are the touch-up tools. So we have things like our rubber stamp tool, we have our blur tool is in there, and our healing brush tool is in there. Things for correcting images or touching up images. And then below that, we have our set of vector tools. So our text tool is in there, the pen tool is in there. We can create vector shapes and so on. Once again, don't feel overwhelmed. A lot of this stuff we're going to be getting to. So don't go crazy trying to memorize exactly everything that I'm talking about here, or thinking that you have to memorize and know exactly what every single tool does. Below that, we have just a set of two tools, the hand tool and the zoom tool. These are our navigation tools. And then the next area of the toolbox is our color area down here, where we see the foreground color swatch, which the default is black, and the background color swatch, and the default for the background color is white, as you can see there. And then below that, we have some view options. So that's the overall review of the toolbox. Let's get a little more specific here. So what I can do, if I want to know exactly what a tool is, what I can do is I can hover my mouse over top of that tool. You've probably already done this, and you're going to get a message, a tooltip, rectangular marquee tool, or as I lovingly refer to it as the rectangular selection tool. Notice too that many of the tools, not all of the tools, but many of the tools have this tiny little triangle, tiny little arrow way down in the bottom right corner. What that indicates is that there's more tools hidden underneath the current tool. So we can activate those hidden tools by clicking and holding on that tool, and now we get this toolbox flyout. So hidden beneath the lasso tool, we have the polygonal lasso tool and the magnetic lasso tool as well. Okay, so explore through, see what we have here. There's lots and lots of tools, lots of possibilities available to us inside the toolbox, which is wonderful. Now, I want to show you some productivity tricks here to move a little bit faster inside the toolbox. The very first tool that we have inside the toolbox, our Move tool. Notice again, when I hover over top of the tool, I get the tooltip. But notice inside brackets, we have a single character there. Let me get that back up on screen here so you can see. So it says Move tool, and then in brackets, the letter V. And you'll notice that throughout the toolbox. Quick selection tool, W. Or brush tool, and then in brackets, B. Now, these individual characters, these single characters, are keystroke shortcuts to activate the tool. So in other words, what I can do is I can tap the V key on my keyboard, not Shift V or Control V or Command V or anything like that, just V all by itself. Just tap the V key, and that will activate the Move tool for us. Or I could tap the L key on my keyboard to get the Lasso tool. Now, I don't know them all, but I know the ones that I use all the time. Here's a bunch of them for you here. I'm going to hit the T key, and that's going to activate my Type tool. Now, Photoshop's going to want to load in some fonts here, so I'm going to have to wait for Photoshop to catch up to me here. So T for the Type tool. Let's see. C for the Crop tool. I for the eyedropper. H for the hand tool all the way down towards the bottom of the toolbox, Z for the zoom tool or the magnifying glass tool, P for pen, right? Again, I don't know them all, but I know the ones that I use on a regular basis. So you might want to keep a scrap piece of paper beside you as we work along, and if you think you might be using a particular tool often, jot down its keystroke equivalent and then you'll have it, right? So hopefully no big deal there. The only other thing I wanted to mention related to the toolbox, actually there's two more things I want to mention about the toolbox. Notice here I went back and I clicked on the move tool. I did that instinctively. I didn't even think about it. I just did it as I was talking along here with you because in my mind, how I think is I think of the move tool as my neutral tool. So whenever I'm done, doing some correction with the healing brush or maybe using the eraser tool or maybe adding in some text or whatever it is that I'm doing inside Photoshop, whenever I'm finished doing that, I automatically go back to the move tool. I either tap the V key on my keyboard or I click on the move tool. So he's sort of my at-rest tool or my neutral tool, if that makes sense. Okay, that's how I work anyway. Notice at the very, very top of the toolbox, we have a white double-headed arrow. What we can do is we can click on that arrow, and that expands our toolbox out to a more traditional Photoshop toolbox, which is a double column toolbox. Now, you may prefer working in this manner. We still have all of the same tools available to us. We still have the color area down towards the bottom and the view area down at the bottom. But notice all of this dead space, this wasted space now down towards the bottom left corner of the Photoshop interface. But some people prefer working in this sort of this two-column toolbox. It's entirely up to you. But I think what I'll do for myself is I'll flip back over to the single column toolbox. So there you go, Photoshop's toolbox. I'm glad we got that out of the way. Now let's take a look at Photoshop's palettes.